The amount of shoulder exercises that you can choose from is absolutely insane. And because there is so many of them, it's really difficult to know which exercises are actually worth your time. So it might seem that the best option is to just do as many of them as possible. But the reality is, most of these exercises are a complete waste of time. You simply don't need like 10 different shoulder exercises every week, because then you are not working out, you are just clowning around. Which might be pretty funny, but unfortunately, being funny doesn't build any muscle. Otherwise, you would probably already have the biggest shoulders in the world, huh? You need to realize that actually doing less and really just hyper-focusing on doing that small amount of exercises correctly is much better than trying to do every single shoulder exercise under the sun. Simplifying your shoulder training is the key to finally seeing real, noticeable results without setting up camp in the gym. Because when you break it down to the absolute basics, it becomes much easier to focus on what is actually the most important, which is the proper form and progressive overload, as these factors are 1,000 times more impactful than overly trying to chase variety. My mission is to show you exactly 3 exercises that your shoulders need. That will be your foundation. Then I will show you the exact amount of sets and reps and how many times per week you should train your shoulders. You can easily just copy that and slide it right into your routine. Shoulders are really not that difficult to understand. They are made up of 3 main parts: the front delts, the side delts, and the rear delts. And for each one of those areas, you need just one exercise. It really is that simple. When it comes to the front delts, you need to realize one crucial thing. Pull pressing exercises already work your front delts a lot, so actually going out of your way to isolate your front delts is not a good idea. Because adding additional isolation exercises for the front delts can lead to an imbalanced development of your shoulders. And as you will see later, actually focusing on the rear and the side delts is much more important for achieving that bolder shoulder look. So for the front delts, I really don't recommend doing any isolation exercises. You know, pretending to be a track driver can be a good hobby, but exercises like that really just are a waste of time. If you are already doing some variation of the overhead press and some chest pressing exercises, you are already doing more than enough to grow your front delts. So what is really important in this section is to select one variation of the overhead press and really focus on it. It doesn't really matter if you go with dumbbells or a barbell, or even if you are sitting or standing. Go with the variation that you like the most and that you have access to. Generally, you should do 3 sets of overhead press per workout, either in the 5 to 8 or 8 to 12 rep range, and you do that twice a week. But you don't have to stick to just one rep range forever though. You can mix them based on the priority of each workout, like I do in my training plans. When you are trying to program shoulders into your split, you need to pay close attention to your chest exercises. Why, you might ask? That is because chest and shoulders highly interfere with each other, meaning that the body part you train first will always be much better off than the second one. Because by the time you get to the second body part, you will already be pretty fatigued from the first one. This is a pretty common issue in most of the training splits, except the Arnold split, where shoulders and chest are done on separate days. But for all the other training splits, you need to do one very simple programming trick. Most commonly, when you do the upper-lower split for example, you train the upper body twice per week, which is crucial if you want to execute this very useful trick. Because when you train your upper body on 2 different days, you don't want both of the days to look the exact same. You need one day to be more focused on your chest and one on your shoulders. Which means that on the first day, you will start with a chest exercise in a lower rep range like 5 to 8 first. And then later you do the shoulder press in a higher rep range like 8 to 12 or even 12 to 15. But on the second upper body day, you do the exact opposite. You start with the overhead press in a lower rep range, like 5 to 8. And then later you do the chest exercises in a higher rep range, like 8 to 12 or 12 to 15. Because you are always doing the low rep range exercise at the start of the workout, your strength will be at its peak, so you will be able to give it your all. And then once you are a little more tired, you will be able to do exercises in a higher rep range, with obviously a little less weight. This is the best way of going about it, and I just barely scratched the surface with this, as there is so many other really cool programming tricks that you can use to make your routine so much better. If you would like to grab a training plan that already has all of the cool programming techniques implemented, then I would highly recommend one of my training plans. You just grab it and follow it in the most simplified way possible, without feeling lost or overwhelmed. So if you want to check it out, click the first link in the description. Now let's talk about the side delts. The side delts are the most important part of the shoulder, because they are responsible for that really sick 3D look. And if your shoulders look like you are a Minecraft character, you are clearly missing out in the side delts department. Once you get your side delts big enough, your physique will appear much wider and much more impressive. To hit the side delts, you should go with the lateral raise. Doesn't really matter what variation you go with, if it's dumbbells, cables or some kind of fancy machine, as they all work on the same basis. Simply go with the variation that you feel like works the best for you. That is always the best approach. Once you find that one variation you like, really try to perfect the form, to squeeze out every little bit of gains out of it. You can once again go with 3 sets per workout, ideally in a little higher of a rep range, so something like 15 to 20 reps is perfect. And you do this twice per week. Then we have the third head of the shoulder, which is the rear delts. This head of the shoulder is the most forgotten, which is really sad to see, because the rear delt is solely responsible for making you look massive from the side. To be completely honest, if you are skipping the rear head of the shoulder, your shoulders will look really weird and incomplete. It's like driving a car that only has the 2 front wheels. It looks okay from the front, but once someone looks from the side, you will be exposed. To grow your rear delts, I recommend picking one of these exercises based on what you like the most and what equipment you have access to. You can choose between the rear delt fly that utilizes dumbbells, the reverse pec deck, which is a very good machine that most gyms have, and if you are more experienced you can go with the face pull, which is more difficult in terms of executing the technique properly, but if you nail it perfectly you will see some great gains. But from all of these exercises you should pick just one, not multiple. You know, if for some reason you want to do more sets for your rear delts than just 3, then you don't need to add more exercises, just do more sets with that same exercise. That will be so much better. And as per usual, the norm for the rear delts is 3 sets per workout, in roughly the 15 to 20 rep range, and you do that twice a week. But in the case of rear delts, going from just 3 sets per workout up to 5 sets per workout can be a good idea if you have been neglecting your rear delts and you want them to catch up as fast as possible. Now we went over all the heads of the shoulder, so let's take a look at how your example shoulder routine could look like when we put it all together. So you got your 3 sets of overhead press in the 5 to 8 or 8 to 12 rep range. Then 3 sets of lateral raises in the 15 to 20 rep range. And lastly 3 sets of rear delt flies also in the 15 to 20 rep range. Simply copy this and do it twice per week. Then you will see the best shoulder gains of your life. Doing any extra exercises beyond the key 3 will be just useless. It would just add unnecessary fatigue that would not lead to any extra muscle growth. Do exactly what I outlined a second ago and you will start seeing results. This setup is super simple so that you can focus on what really builds muscle. That is the proper technique, tracking your weight progression over time and going to the gym consistently, which should not be a problem anymore, because you now know exactly what you need to focus on. So you can finally relax and stop stressing about if you are missing out on something. You got everything you need right here. Thank you for watching, I hope that you learned something and I will see you next time. Try clicking on this video, I think it's a pretty good one.